This is Coffee with Kelly, a dynamic podcast that's dedicated to driving positive change in school safety. I'm your host, Ethan Woodman, Product Marketing Specialist for Crisis Go, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Kelly Moore, Senior School Safety Specialist for Crisis Go. Our mission is to empower you with essential knowledge, tools, and inspiration required to foster a safer and more secure school environment. We hope this podcast will be the catalyst for transformation in your schools. Join us as we continue to dive into the world of school safety. All right. Good morning, Kelly.
Morning, Ethan. How are you?
You seem very happy today. That's good. We like Kelly in a happy mood.
As rare as it
is. Oh man. Although when you're not happy, it's still entertaining. I mean, unless you're not happy with me, then it's not entertaining.
Then it's not so much.
It's a little scary, but that's okay. All right, so we'll jump right into a couple articles here. So the first one actually happened in, I believe it's Canada. So I'm just going to read the headline for you, and that should just be enough. Teen charged after student injured by gel blaster water gun outside of the school. It was one of those like,
I know exactly what it is.
How do you get injured? I mean, what?
In the eye.
I mean,
running away from something. So there's
like you're running away from the gel blaster. Maybe you ran into something as a result of
something, or you twisted an ankle, or
that counts.
It wouldn't have happened if you didn't point a gel gun at me.
Dang.
I mean, it happens. There's collateral consequences, right? But you know how I feel about this, right? Was it part of the assassin game that's going around?
It didn't say anything about that. It just said that this 16-year-old just kind of ran up on him and
started blasting him.
Probably was just, having fun being a kid. I don't know.
Yeah, there's part of that, but there's consequences to that potential, right?
Like to like be charged.
I don't know the circumstances,
that's crazy.
And I don't know Canadian law, so
that's true.
I think we just have to be cognizant of the fact that some things that we do that we start out as a joke can end tragically and oftentimes have negative consequences to them. And so, we just got to be smart about it. It's on the surface, we know what it was, right? So hindsight is that we know that it was a gel blaster and not a real firearm. Have you seen some of those even?
Yeah, some of them water guns. They look kind of real,
right?
Yeah.
They're electronic and they have LED lights that shoot, and so it looks like an explosion, and it goes pew pew pew, right? As they like to say in the gun world, you go pew pew. But the reality is, if we are trying to train our people to reduce the reactionary gap, playing games like that actually increases the reactionary gap, because
like you think like,
it's just a water gun, or it's just a gel gun, or it's here comes that again, right? And so you go back to what's the question I always ask in these cases?
What's the worst that can happen?
What's the worst that can happen, or what are they actually doing?
Yeah.
Right. So whether it's an airsoft gun or a gel gun or one of these more realistic water pistols, what are they actually doing? That requires some investigation. Now, of course, we don't know Canada law. We don't know what all the circumstances were, but was this something typical of this kid that's joking around, or is this something completely out of the ordinary for this kid? And was there anger involved? Was there some sort of other emotional attachment to what was going on that might indicate that they were a threat? We have to ask those questions now. So, it seems silly on the surface, but we have to look, because we look at it and we say, okay, that's just kids being kids. And I've said this, if I said it 100 times, I said it 1,000 times. We're past that. We're past that as a reason not to go further, where people have to start looking at, you might find out that it was in fact just a kids being kids incident. but you have to establish that it was, not take it for granted and say, oh, it's springtime, summertime, last day of school, whatever. We don't have to do anything because tomorrow's summer. Who knows? But it's one of those things that you have to look into.
Let's see. Then I'm gonna share this one so everyone can see this craziness. All right. So this I don't know, maybe like happened like a week or so ago. I think
Is
it
this
was
the kindergarten thing? It is.
Yes. Not last weekend, but the weekend prior, I think. There was a fight that broke out at a kindergarten graduation over what it says seating arrangements. So
yeah. Okay. We're adults here. Can we just act like this is kindergarten?
Like, what's this? Like just full blown, multiple people getting involved, crashing over each other, throwing punches, throwing kicks, like multiple different like isolated fights. Like what in the world?
Yeah, this is
crazy, wild.
Yeah, I don't get it, but we're there. We have a society who generally thinks they're entitled to have certain rights and privileges that don't necessarily exist, right? And our kids grow up to be the example that we set for them, right?
No way.
And if your kids grow up to be good kids, that's a reflection of who you were as a parent. If they grow up to be bad kids, that's a reflection of you as a parent. And so we have to get back, and I don't think there's many people who disagree with me, but we have to get back to people being parents, not being their best friend, not giving them everything they want, not doing all of this stuff like this. This is silly. I don't know any time where I was even like challenged to say, you know what, this is my seat. I'm going to fight. I'll fight you for it. It's my seat. At a kindergarten graduation.
Who cares?
Right? Go stand up in the back. Who cares?
Yeah, right?
You know, it's kindergarten graduation. I get it, but it's kindergarten graduation. Let's look at this from a broader perspective. How many of those exact same situations have you seen at high school graduations? We're seeing more and more of those things. We had one, I think he was a superintendent, I saw on a deal. There was some disruption. It didn't show what the disruption actually was, but he just said, all right, graduation is done. We're not going forward. It's over. Get out of my building. Right? But we're seeing fights. We're seeing, full on Donnybrooks out in the parking lots and stuff at schools. We're seeing these kids that have these teenage takeovers in malls.
I saw another one of those the other day.
And people are getting shot. And
yeah, there was one in a trampoline park and a kid got shot.
Yeah, this is
what are we doing?
Completely out of control.
Yeah.
But it's because we're allowing our kids to grow up without consequences, right? So we're going to continue to see this until we start adding consequences. And I will say there is a trend. I also see this where kids are being required to take actions that have consequences. Like there's a bunch of professors at the UC in California that are demanding that kids start taking the SATs and ACTs again because there's no consequences, and they're seeing these kids come in and just fail miserably at their college studies because it's not because of anything other than they can't. They're not qualified to be there. Until we get that, we're going to continue to see this. So what that means is you're going to have to start planning for violence between parents at events and up to and including kindergarten. Probably the next step is pre-K, right? The pre-K is silly.
That's crazy.
You're going to have armed security at kindergarten graduation.
That's just silly. All right, so next one is police seize gun and machete from students at this school. So first, they responded to the school for a report of a person with a gun. When the officers arrived, they found the principal with the student who had reportedly dropped a black bag. According to police, a semi-automatic pistol with 2 rounds was inside. Interesting. So then it says that the officers learned that there might have been other weapons. It might have been another weapon in the school. So they did. The school was placed on lockdown and the officers searched classrooms and lockers. Another interesting part was the letter that was sent to parents the same day stated that it wasn't a lockdown, but just a,
secure.
Yeah, basically. So students were not able to leave the classrooms. Police said several students were checked for weapons inside the nurse's office. So it kind of sounds like they were line them up and having them go into the nurse's office as a way of like a checkpoint or something. I don't know.
But privacy, probably.
Okay. And then they said one student had a machete hidden in a pair of sweatpants in their backpack.
Machetes are specific sizes, right? A machete
they're quite long.
They're almost 3 feet long, right?
Yeah, I mean they're substantial. Isn't that weird? Like there's 2 students. One student brings in a semi-automatic pistol with 2 rounds, and then you got another student that comes in with a machete.
Do we know the intent of either of those?
No, but they're both.
You would think that'd be in a follow-up.
They're both high school level kids.
All right, so let's unpack this with as little information as we have here, right?
There you go.
So
I threw another curveball at you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. You look at the circumstances, and what I would look at this from a law enforcement perspective, investigator perspective as one. He brought a firearm, and it had 2 rounds, so probably meant more for protection than a mass shooting, because it's hard to get a mass shooting with two rounds unless there's other rounds somewhere else, right? So did we look for other rounds other places?
Yep.
And the other part of that is there was thought to be another weapon somewhere. So did we find that, or are we assuming that because they found the machete that is the other weapon that they were originally reported, right?
Yeah, that's good, like outside the box thinking,
Well, it's just natural process. You can't assume that a weapon. We always, especially in a school setting, when we say weapon, that everyone naturally goes to the gun. But we know there's been mass attacks with multiple victims with machetes and swords and vehicles and pipes and sledgehammers. There's been, you name it, people have used it, right? Large sticks like a staff or something in that kind of category. So this is why we have to attack from a preventative perspective the violence issue, not the weapon issue. Do we want guns on school campuses? No, that's not what I'm saying. But it is a violence issue. It is behavior issue. And those are things that we have to address. Because if you're intent on doing harm to as many people as you can, committed to it, and you don't have access to a weapon, a firearm, you'll find another way. And whether it's a car, whether it's a machete, whether it's a sword, whether it's a large broomstick, a cane, there's all kinds of different things that can be used as weapons. And it's just what is your intent? We're focused for obvious reasons on the firearm, but you can do a lot of damage very quickly with a large machete and a large club, a baseball bat.
All right, we'll move on to my last one here, I think. So then this one's pretty, I think we've maybe talked about this TikTok challenge in the past. I don't know why it's still a thing. That's pretty crazy.
The specific one?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, haven't we?
I don't.
Like a different event, not this specific event, but maybe like I feel like I've heard about this before.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I have, but go ahead.
So a school is being sued after teen reportedly assaulted in what they call the Skull Crusher social media challenge. Lots of S's there.
That was a tongue twister, wasn't it?
Man, we're like talking about something serious, and I can't even. Anyways, so the challenge basically is where like you tell the kid to jump, and as he's midair, you kick his legs midair. So then they basically like flip over, and the first thing that hits the ground is their head, and it's like really dangerous.
Yeah, this is the first time I've heard of it, but it's essentially kicking the feet out. There's no way they're defenseless at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could like throw your arms down, but then you're probably gonna like wreck your wrist or something. But
Yeah, you're in a defenseless position, and the reason I bring up defenseless position is because when you get into these dangerous positions, actions like this, even violent sports often penalize you for hitting somebody or
yeah,
checking somebody in hockey in a defenseless position,
yeah,
and
that's
it's
true.
to the point. It's to the point that because they can be injured so badly that there are ejections, suspensions, and huge fines on these things, right? And I don't know if there's something similar in baseball because baseball is not a big penalty type sport, but basketball, football, hockey, those all have
Oh yeah,
defenseless
yeah,
contact rules. So that's what this is. The interesting part, I think, is where you're getting at is the schools being sued for it. But again, we have to look at the prior knowledge that this was going on. And I think in this case there was some complaints from the parents about the target of this was being bullied and that they had several instances of this challenge on video and it wasn't ever reported and or followed up on. But I will say this goes to we've talked about this kind of, we've skated over the surface of this, but the vast majority of video systems in our schools have nobody monitoring them.
yeah. Like they're really, a lot of them are there for like the investigative,
the investigation
purpose.
Afterwards, or you might have. So I had an incident that when I was the safety director where we had the school on a lockdown, there's a report of a gun. I use this one scenario quite a bit. There was a report of a gun on campus, and we ended up going back to see what the student reported and tried to figure out why she reported it that way. But nobody was watching that camera when the incident happened. We went back and looked at it, and we were there and this was one of my lessons learned from this incident, was we spent an hour and a half trying to figure out who everybody was and what the circumstances were. And had I called down to IT department and say, pull up this camera and tell me what you see, we would have had that figured out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can clearly see what is happening. You also can clearly see why the student reported what she did. And I always praise her because she did the right thing. It wasn't what she thought it was, but I'd much rather have it that than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
But you also clearly see the dude leaving and knowing he got into a car because it turned out it was a radiator hose that had busted and he was holding it and it looked like a firearm the way that he was holding it. And he ordered an Uber and went to the auto parts store to get a replacement hose so he can get on with his life. But we saw him get into a car and leave. So we could have stopped everything that happened in 5 minutes. Point being, though, is it wasn't monitored. So in this circumstance, you have lots of stuff happening. And you generally, that's not being monitored on video. You have we've spent millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in the United States to put video cameras there. And the vast majority of them are not monitored. More and more are being monitored by AI, but it's still, I don't believe we're getting there, but I don't believe we're at a point where AI can interpret behavior, because there's a lot of behaviors that present themselves very similarly, but are different. They have different context, different meaning with different contexts. So you can point to the school and say, you should have known because of all these videos here, and here. It's not being monitored. Because the other part was interesting to me because the schools, we've talked about this many, many times, the schools often claim that, and it's proper to claim this, but they often claim parenthesis and loco. So when your kid is at their school, which means in your absence as a parent, they are the parent and authorized as such by law to act in the best interest of the child.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is is that the schools generally use that conditionally when it benefits them. And that's not the intent of that law. That law is specifically intended to protect the child as though the parent was there. And it's not just their parent, because we have bad parents.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So the intent of the law is to protect the child as though you were a good parent, not as a disconnected parent.
Yeah.
So of all of that information that you gave me, that's the most interesting aspect of what because they're saying they neglected their duty as a parent to protect that child. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this kid, it says this kid ended up with like 3 fractured vertebrae, a concussion, like severely injured, like horrible prank. And
yeah, part of those actions were also, you didn't have a nurse's, or the allegations, I should say. Part of the allegations were they didn't have a nurse available. They didn't have a nurse facility available for them. They made the kid walk around after suffering a significant fall. It's hard to say that, because you don't know what he was complaining about. The injuries, what were the injuries? But he had fractured vertebrae, temporary paralysis, some other things, I guess, according to the article. So, but part of that was because the school made him get up and walk around and walk from one side of campus to another. So
it's horrible.
So, I'm not saying that they can diagnose fractured vertebrae and stuff, because fractured vertebrae doesn't necessarily mean paralyzed. But in this case, It sounds like there was some temporary paralysis, but it's a difficult situation, right? You have 2,000 kids you got to take care of, and you're trying to get things resolved as quickly as possible. And
yeah,
but you have to take care of your kids. You got to do it right.
Preferably, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're in a litigious society. You got to do it right. You got to do it as though you were supposed. You know what you're supposed to do, and you're going to exercise what it is that you're supposed to do. It's not difficult.
Yeah. All right. We can move on to maybe the main bit here. So I'll hand it off to you. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So we're hearing more and more, and we're discovering more and more about we have operational plans. We have, I'm going to use air quotes, connections with our law enforcement, our fire departments, or so forth. And when we start digging into that from our perspective, we're finding out that those aren't really that substantial, those relationships. And what I want to talk about is we have a lot of these mandates. And in fact, I have a research paper that I put together, and it brought up some very interesting information. And in that year, like running up to 2020, COVID, just before that, there was a study done with 90 schools who spent close to $250 million and looking at the safety of our schools. And what it showed was that our schools were still lacking in the human connection that is mandated by circumstance, not by law, but mandated if you want to be successful, that you have to have this human element. So it says there was $246 million in federal investment in 90 schools with a persistent research to practice gap.
Okay.
Which means they found that the absence of the human coordination in infrastructure created a huge gap.
Oh, interesting. No way.
Right? So we have, and this is what we really wanted to talk about today, is this, what I'm going to call it, the operational gap. We have the planning, we have our emergency operations plans. We've talked about this a fair amount, but I want to come at it. We've talked about it a fair amount recently, but I want to come at it from a different little perspective. And that is, we've talked about it from the perspective of the school has their plans, law enforcement has their plans, fire departments have their plans, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not practicing together. And what this research shows is that none of us can really put this into a sound operational practice if we don't practice it. right?
Go figure.
Right. But it's one of those things that we sit back and we say, well, wait a second. I know who the law enforcement guys are. Have you practiced your plans? Have you sat down? So we have a lot of these organizations that are required to review the plans. Law enforcement, county offices, regional offices of education, they have to report compliance to state, and many of them fall short because the mandate assumes that the people who are reviewing those plans understand and have practiced those plans. And we can make this available on our website, this plan or this report that I put together, but it is remarkable because the question that I was asking was, because we're looking at connecting through Crisis Go Connect our communities, our law enforcement, our first responders, our mental health, our hospitals, our municipal buildings, our gathering places, concert. That's what we're kind of working on right now, right? And but so the question was really, have we really tried this before? And if we have, was it successful? Or if it wasn't successful, why? And so that's the question that I was asking. And the bottom line is they've tried it. They've been trying it for years, but very few attempts have realized what their goal was. They fell short almost every time. And it emphasizes that it's not the technology that saves lives. It's the people understanding what to do. It's the human element, the infrastructure, the practice, the coordination, all of those things. People can't coordinate things if they don't ever practice it, right? And we go back to the football analogy that I use so many times. I can have the coaches will put down every play imaginable. They have a playbook. They call it a playbook, and they give all of the players the playbook, right?
And as you're playing football, you can just whip out the playbook while you're on the field. That's how you play football, right?
Right. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I have my playbook, you have your playbook, the defensive playbook and the offensive playbook, or special teams, or what have you, right? And under certain circumstances, if we're third and long, these are the plays that we're going to play. If we have 20 yards to go to get a first down, these are the plays that we're going to play. We can have that all of these hazards, I'm going to call them, if you see how I'm transitioning there. We're going to have all of these plays, all of these contingency plans. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. But the difference between what football is doing and what we're doing in the emergency or school safety and emergency management is they practice it every day.
Like literally.
Literally every day. And they see a threat coming up on Friday, the threat being a challenge, a football game against a rival, and they practice to address that specifically. And we still haven't gotten our people to understand that, our people, our safety people. We haven't gotten there yet. Here's what what I'm trying to articulate here. The football teams and every other sporting team, the football teams have operationalized their plans. The coordinators, we can call them first responders, have operationalized they're talking to each other. They're practicing it all of the time. They're making corrections as they go, even in the game itself. Set of downs is an operational period. What are we going to do here? We're going to do this, and then we're going to keep adjusting until we get it right, and we march down and make a touchdown. The other exacerbating factor here is everyone has a different playbook.
Like the schools all have different playbooks?
The school has a different playbook. The fire department has a different playbook. The law enforcement has a different playbook. The emergency managers, the hospitals, they all have a different playbook. It might be labeled the same game that they're playing, but they're coming at it completely different. So now we're looking at the let's say the front line and the quarterback coaches, the receiving coaches, the running back coaches, those are all, we'll call those first responders, right? They're different agencies. They all have a different playbook because their part of the overall play is different. But they practice it together so that the running backs know what the quarterbacks are doing, which knows what the front line is doing, which knows what the receivers are doing. Everyone knows their positions and they've practiced it. And what's the difference between an emergency and a football game, other than the complete obvious, is these are, you have 30 seconds of action, and then you take a break, and then you look at it and go, oh, that didn't work so well. Let's try this. Or the circumstances change.
Doesn't always pan out that way in a real emergency.
So now you're having to make those things up on the fly. We call those operational periods. You don't get to stop, but you can plan based upon what you're seeing. So you see the guys up in the press box. They're looking at what they're seeing, and they're saying, okay, this is where the momentum's going. We have a weakness over here. We have a strength over here. And they're working through that. It's crazy at the correlation, but that one of the points is we do much more to prepare for a football game than we do for emergencies. And we look at the statistics are pretty clear. Unless you are working together and you are practicing together on a regular basis, when it becomes necessary, you have a higher failure rate and you're less successful. So there's a couple of interesting statistics. School staff reported a reduction of 90% violence when there was a multi-agency partnership and structure in their schools. 90%. Isn't that crazy? A 263% increase in getting mental health services to those who need it.
Wow.
Under a structured multi-agency organization that was working. There's federal mandates that every county in the United States has what they call a local emergency planning committee, an LEPC. And almost universally, they've stopped at hazardous materials. Almost none of them address school safety as part of their mandate.
Nice.
Right? There was some early success. This kills me. Early success at this study group where they put these, what they call multi-agency coordination groups together, these MACs, and where schools participated and all of the first responders participated. And this was part of as I understand it, part of the $240 million was to fund these groups, and they all failed. Almost none of them exist today.
Why, Kelly?
Why? Because the funding stopped.
Oh, no way.
They were showing success, and the funding stopped. And everyone said, no more money. The mandate, the moral mandate never ended.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of the funding or the mandates or the operational positioning of these multi-agency coordination groups should be zero, almost zero, or in-kind kind of expenses. Like, I'm the safety director, but you're already paying me to be the safety director. So why can't I go to a coordination meeting? Why can't we have a tabletop? Because you're already paying for us to do that. Sure, if you're going to have large, full-scale exercises, those cost money because you got to feed the people there. You got to give them water. Sometimes you have to rent the space. Those things, sometimes you have actors and actresses, and you dress them up with, what do they call that, moulage, or you make them look like they're injured, right?
Okay.
So you put makeup stuff on them. So you have makeup artists come and stuff like that because you're trying to articulate specific injuries and so forth, right? I get it.
Okay.
But there's ways to do that much cheaper. Buy a case of Halloween blood, right? And
yeah, right.
Put a little 3x5 card and say, this is what my injuries are.
Yeah, might be a little less traumatic that way.
Less traumatic, and it's a lot cheaper, right? So there's ways to do this, and I get it, but there is a responsibility to get these things operational. And we have to make not only our plans operational, but we have to make our relationships operational. We have to identify who is responsible within each organization/agency who is going to drive this. We have to have MOUs in place. We have to have charters in place. We have to have agreements on who's going to do what, how many times, what your participation is, and so forth. Because absent that, I always ask this question. We are 27 years past Columbine. Why are we still trying to figure this out? This is why. Because people in our industry are saying, here's a button. That's all you need. But it's not that I can show you a specific incident where they claim victory, or some of our competitors claim victory, and we can show that it did not save lives. So it's not the technology. The technology makes the connections. The technology helps you do your job, but you still have to do it. Even with the advent and the emerging technology of AI, you have to do your job. It takes the human element to be proactive, to be prepared, to prevent when it's preventable. It takes the community to do that. And it can't just be the school. It can't just be law enforcement. You can't say, I know who the chief is. Well, the chief's not the one who's going to be responding. Do we need the chief? Right? Unless it's a very small agency.
Right.
And I remember when I was going to high school in upstate New York, our chief of police had a part-time job as one of the school bus drivers.
Man.
But it's that type of situation that it might be the chief that shows up, right? But generally speaking, an agency of any kind, it's not going to be the chief. It's going to be the patrol deputy or the patrol officer. Do they understand what it is that they're supposed to do, right? So I can make it operational when I have the superintendent, the safety directors, the principals, the chief of police, the commanders and lieutenants, the fire chief and the battalion chiefs and the assistant chiefs all sitting around a table saying, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, everyone got it? Yep. But if the patrol guy doesn't know what a contact team is, and the patrol guy doesn't know how to access a building with access control, and the patrol guy doesn't know what a staging site is, doesn't know what a CP is, it does us no good. If we have to sit there and explain if I say go to the CP and somebody has to say, what's the CP? It's the command post. Where's the command post? If I have to give those instructions every time, we're done, right? I'm not going to go into other stats. If somebody wants the report, go to the website. We'll have it up there in the next few days. But the idea is we have this operational gap. We have the plans. We have the agencies. They all understand that they're part of this, but we have this gap because there's no making these things operational. They don't know how to perform what they're supposed to. They don't know. And we still have people today, and again, it just baffles me. We have people who are training to a checklist.
Yeah.
I have a checklist and I'm good. This tells them exactly what to do. That is the very, very, very first step in your safety program. That's showing them what you want them to do. But the goal is that you show them often enough and you've practiced it often enough through drills and tabletop exercises and so forth that they know exactly what to do. They don't have to go to. They know what the play is. They know what their position is. They know what their expectations are, right? If they're on the line, they know to block. If they're a receiver, they know to catch the ball. If they're a tight end, they get to do both, receive the ball and block. So the quarterback knows he's got to throw it or run it. He's got to make some yards. It's his responsibility, right? So that's what we're talking about when we operationalize plans, operationalize relationships so that everyone's talking to each other, everyone's practicing together, everyone is understanding what each other's roles are, right? Even though the offense and the defense are on different sides of the ball but they're on the field at different times. You know, those offensive and defensive coordinators are talking all of the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know that even when your offense is on the field, The offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator are talking about strategies. Hey, we're getting beat up here. How do I run this play? Well, if I were defending you, I would do this. How do I get around that? We'll run this play. Okay, right? It's that type of conversation we have to have, right? And until we get to that point, we're going to continue to struggle. We have tools that'll help you do that, but nobody has the tools that'll do it for you.
Yeah, there needs to be some effort involved.
There has to be a lot
to
of
make
effort.
this work.
Yeah, we can't remove the effort, right? We can make the effort easier. We can make the effort more efficient, more effective. We can do things simultaneously that we couldn't do even 5 or 6 years ago. That's what technology helps you do. Helps you coordinate, right? Makes the sharing of information effortlessly, right? Boop. Here we have that ability, so you can have actionable data, so you can make data-driven decisions because you can see what's happening. We can do that, but you still have to make the decision. You still have to send your cops in there. Your teachers still have to account for their students. That's where we need to get to. That's where we're going to be marching. And if we ever want to solve this problem, we've always said this was a community thing, and now we have to operationalize it. So there'll be more of this type of conversation coming up in the future. I hope more than not, because it's that important. We have to get these people talking together.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions about what we discussed, leave a comment on our website at crisisgo.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Coffee with Kelly, a discussion on school safety.